recording from camera request. ID. So you guys are on. We're on. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We were experiencing a little bit of technical difficulty, but are welcoming you here today for our disability awareness discussion. Today's theme is Bridging the Gap from Awareness to Actionable Inclusion. I am Marcia Egan. I am the Vice President of Program Services at BOSMA and will be the moderator today. As we acknowledge this historical content for this month, we also recognize that it aligns with BOSMA's mission of creating opportunities for people who are blind. Our goal today isn't just to talk about barriers, but to identify those practical, actionable steps that organizations can take to strengthen workplace inclusion. So to get started, I am going to have our panelists introduce themselves and also share their why, their personal or professional motivation behind their commitment to disability inclusion. So Ray, I'm going to start with you.
All right, thank you, Marcia. My name is Ray Montgomery. I am the Outreach and Volunteer Manager here at BOSMA. And I am also totally blind, and my why is I'm here just really to advocate for those individuals who may be experiencing vision loss, that there is life after vision loss, and just wanted to inform employers about the capabilities of those individuals who are blind and may be out here looking for gainful employment. Now I'm going to pass it over to Chris.
Thank you, Ray. I am Christy Russell, and I am the Senior Manager of Program Services here at BOSMA. And I've been in the field of disability and employment for over 20 years. And so my why is to continue to advocate on behalf of what people with disabilities can do and how they do the same things we all do, just maybe a little bit differently. I think it takes a village to continue to break down that stigma. And I've seen it done for a very long time, and I just want to continue to advocate on their behalf.
Hi, my name is Angela Vanderstein, former BOSMA employee, but now I'm with Aspire Johnson County, which is the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Organization in Johnson County. I oversee as Vice President, our work as the Chamber and all of our programming. Previous to that, in between BOSMA, I worked for another disability agency where I actually trained employers on disability inclusion in the workplace. And my why, a little bit multifaceted. I have a physical disability myself. I have 3 children with diagnosed disabilities. 2 of them have the same condition I have, and 1 is on the autism spectrum. But also from working at BOSMA, and I came to work here really early on in our personal journey. But, I tell people a lot of times that, that fueled my passion more than anything, working with my coworkers here and understanding more their journey, their stories, and just, the overall impact of, unemployment, underemployment on people with disabilities really motivates me as much as our personal reasons as a family, so.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Dunleavy, Assistive Technology Training and Program Services Manager here at BOSMA. And in my situation, I lost my vision several years ago and came through BOSMA as a rehab client, then worked at BOSMA following that for 3 years, and then was able to get back out into the workforce with Eli Lilly and Company, where I had worked the previous 7 years before having the opportunity to return to BOSMA in my current capacity. So for me, it really is about just knowing that I've gone through the process of learning the adaptive skills to be able to get back into the work environment. I've worked at a fully integrated business environment. I know the challenges, but I also know that that it's completely possible, and with the with the right culture and the right awareness and actions from the company perspective, as well as from the individual, I think we can be very successful in from a professional standpoint. And so I just want to keep emphasizing all the great things that can be done, and things that we should be thinking about and doing to help make that possible.
All right, thank you all. So our discussion today is going to center around 4 pillars. We've broken it down into 4 pillars of inclusion. And so our first pillar is regarding recruitment and retention. And so I'm going to pose this question to Ray and to Christy. How can employers shift from hiring for diversity to hiring for talent while ensuring the process doesn't unintentionally exclude qualified candidates? And so, Ray, since you're right next to me, I'm going to have you start.
That is a great question right there, Martha. And what I would say is, how can employers hire for talent? Is really seeking out talent. Coming to places like Bosma, where individuals are talented, they're actually looking for gainful employment. So that's one thing that you can start with. Also, making sure that your website is accessible. So making sure that is accessible off top for individuals who may be who may be using a screen reading software like JAWS, and making sure that's able to interact with your application so that they can apply for that particular position. Because once that job is inaccessible, then we get frustrated, and that actually makes us look a little bit incompetent. So we want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward on that end. And also, looking at your job descriptions is another way as well. Just making sure those job descriptions don't have words that will actually, I guess, exclude individuals who are blind, who may be looking for that type of job. One word that always comes to mind is must have that driver's license. So that one right there always deters a lot of people right there, because we know that although that I don't drive to work every day because I am totally blind, I'm able to still get back and forth to where I need to go, despite not using a vehicle. So those are some of the things that I found that employers can do to actually get more talented individuals who maybe have a disability into their workplace. I'm gonna pass it over to you, Christy.
Well, I would say, Ray, you summed that up perfectly. I would agree with all of those points you made, and certainly we advocate for those as well. The other thing I would add is that I think sometimes there's the pressure, maybe in an interview, when maybe you notice that the candidate does have some sort of visible disability, and it can be in the moment hard to maybe proceed with the interview without thinking of that. Well, how would they be able to do this? We start to maybe question their ability to do the job, and we don't really focus on the resume and actually look at their experience, look at those degrees, look at those certifications, and continue your interview with the right questions so that you can actually find out what life experiences this person can bring to the table, and they may actually be the best person for the job, because the questions about the disability can come later in terms of how they will do that. But ultimately is focusing really on the job at hand and who is the right person with the particular skill set you need in order to fulfill that position, knowing that there's plenty of resources in the community that can help you answer the how.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I think also adding in, I've seen lots of job descriptions recently, as my kids have been looking for careers, where they detail out what the interview process is actually going to be like. So it lets people know up front. And I think adding things like that into the job description, letting them know what the interview process is going to be like, is there's going to be any skills-based testing during it, will also encourage people with disabilities to apply. It's going to take away that anxiety about applying for the position.
All right, those are always very good points, and I love the information that you shared, because it is very unique. from employer to employer as well as from applicant to applicant. So thank you. All right, we're going to move on to pillar 2. Our next question is really looking at lived experience and workplace realities. So I'm going to pose this again, start with Ray and then Angela, and then if others want to chime in, by all means, do that. So the question here is, what are the most significant unseen challenges to career advancement, and what does a truly supportive culture look like? So Ray?
Some of the most significant challenges, I would say, to career advancement would be just the low expectations. The low expectations that people place on individuals who are blind, not knowing that we can do various tasks. But also, I would say another thing that I feel that creates challenges is that people place their limitations on you, and they do not know what an individual who is blind is capable of doing. And that's nothing wrong with that individual. It's just because they may lack that knowledge of not knowing or having that experience of being around someone who is blind or have the low vision. So once that individual, our employer, is I guess the word I'm looking for is privy to being around those individuals. They will see that we use assistive technology. They will see that we are getting back and forth to work. They would see how we do our jobs on a day-to-day basis. And then once we educate them first, then I would say that will open up the doors to a lot more experience. I think it's all about educating that employer first, because I don't get mad at the person for not knowing, because I don't know a lot of things. When I lost my vision, I didn't know about a screen reading software or braille display, or things like that. But once you know about these things, and once we inform the employer about these type of technologies, I think that actually will increase the employment rate among people who are blind. So.
Ray, you're just stealing all the.
Oh.
Yeah, no, but Ray did hit on the biggest point is that employers just aren't very well educated on what people with disabilities can do, what assistive technology is out there that it's not going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars for most. The low expectations, the stigmas that exist. So educating employers absolutely is the top priority, getting them to better understand what people with disabilities can do, what is available for them to help out. Well, there's also that we do not see, you're talking advancement, we don't see a lot in the media promoting, people with disabilities in higher level jobs. And even, when you see, like during March or during October, which is Disability Employment Awareness Month, a lot of the promotions are people doing, warehouse work and things like that. Well, we need to show more. And I know self-disclosure is very personal, but we need people in higher level positions also to disclose and show that, hey, someone can be a vice president with a disability. Somebody can lead a company with a disability.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask Chris if you wanted to share a little bit on this because it fits into both of your realms.
Yeah, I do have a couple things that I'd like to touch upon, which, first of all, there's, it does go on both sides, in terms of, the first thing is you can have company leadership that is all in on inclusion and but then it comes down to, is it the supervisors who are going to be working with the individuals at the at more of the mid-level or whatever level that's going to be? Are they on the same page? Are they aligned as well? Are they fully aware of all the things that we need to be thinking about or doing to ensure that that individual is going to be successful? So, there's a lot of times where some of the mid-level managers are just unsure of how to talk to someone who is working for them that has a disability, and they feel as though they're uncomfortable having that conversation. I think it's important that we are able to have open dialogue about it, but more importantly, at the end of the day, it's just a matter of trying to figure out how do we remove any challenges or obstacles for that individual so that they can thrive and be successful in that position. So, and then the other thing I would say is, for a lot of individuals who have a disability, especially for those who are blind, visually impaired, I think the idea of promoting so you're working in one area, you're getting to know your manager, you're getting to know the people around you and how you do everything, but then switching into another area that may be totally different people who may or may not fully understand the situation and maybe some of the things that work well and some of the things that don't work well, and how you can navigate around all those things. It's really difficult for the individual with a disability to make that jump because there is that fear of the unknown of, all right, if I go from what is now a really stable, good situation to where I'm now flipping into something else that may not be, or you feel like you're having to start all over with like the awareness and education and all that, it really does become challenging. And I think a lot of people, I don't want to say that they don't go for it, but it can be a limitation to a degree. So it's just having that awareness all the way through the company of what it means to work with someone with a disability and the things that will make them or help them to be successful.
Thank you, Chris. Great insight and a great lead into my next question. So hold on to the mic. So as we look at pillar 3, supporting the whole employee, it's really looking at that individual. And so this is kind of for Chris and Christy, just kind of look at this. But it really is focusing on how do we support employees with a disability beyond equipment and basic accommodations. You started to touch on some of that in what you were just sharing. So if you'd expand a little bit.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So the first thing I will always emphasize, for someone with a disability, access is always the key. Whether we're talking physical access, getting into the building and around the building and to your desk and all of those things, making sure that is set up in a way that is accessible for all. But then also the digital access. I think a critical part is, we talk about websites being accessible, which is hugely important so that those that are external to our company can have access to products, services, and so forth. But also those, for those that are working for the company, ensuring that the applications and the things that we're using from a digital standpoint on the inside are also accessible, so that we can fully navigate and do all of our work, the way that we need to. So just ensuring that full accessibility, both physically as well as digitally, is very important.
Yeah, I would agree. I think as someone who leads a team, and we have a variety of staff who are both sighted and not, I look at it as a leader of saying, how does this person learn best, or how do they perform best? And the number one thing you can do is just meet with them and ask them, how do you need this? How do you prefer this? Because even with vision loss and having staff who are visually impaired, they all are different in how they prefer their information, how they work best, if they like quiet versus, nope, I'm good, put an earbud in and let me go on into that meeting. I think we have to get back to being comfortable just talking with our staff and getting to know them, and how they learn best, how they perform. Because I think, all staff innately want to do a good job. They're coming to work with purpose and they want to excel. And to Chris's point, they do hope to advance. But I think as leaders, we have to create that environment where they do feel comfortable sharing those goals with us. And then always being available to look at alternate options. I think as a leader, we have to be open to the idea that someone may do something different than maybe their counterpart. I feel like that has served me well over the years of working with people with a variety of disabilities, not just blindness or low vision. But I do think it starts with leaders, and that frontline leader is certainly the important one, because I think feedback we've heard is when they feel supported at the most frontline level, then it really does build from there. And so I think it's important to really talk to the individual about what they use, how they use it. Don't assume that just because maybe they're blind, that they're going to want everything in Braille, because they may not be a Braille reader. And so they might find that a little offensive if you show up with a whole, policy manual in Braille. They'll say, well, thank you, but you could have just sent me that Word doc. So just get to know, I think the common leadership best practices apply here too.
And another critical thing that you said there, Christy, that I just want to expand upon a little bit, which is, when someone who is blind, visually impaired, when we lose our vision, we have to figure out how to do things a different way, using, our other senses and so forth and so on. And the same applies in the work environment as well, because we all get, kind of tied into this idea of, all right, well, we have to do it this way, and I think there's lots of different ways that we can do it, and that includes within the work process, an individual could change the way they do things, but also the way we do things within the work environment, we can change that as well to accommodate, we don't always have to have one person doing the exact same thing, split the division of labor or, do things a different way if we really open our minds to that optionality and creativity.
All right, thank you. I think the other, unfortunately, Andrew had to step away for a minute, but I think, work is work, but there's also a social component in any work environment. Any insights on that, Ray, from that social networking within a work environment?
Yeah, definitely. It's the small things that, as a person who is blind that I don't see. So just really interacting with that individual as you walk through the hallways and, talking to that person as they pass by, let them know that you're there. So this communication is key. We just talked about that a lot. So being able to communicate with your teammates. I mean, no matter if they're blind, if they're in a wheelchair, whatever it may be, I mean, we all communicate on the same level. So just really being able to open up to your coworkers. Don't be afraid to talk to that individual. Don't be afraid to use words around us as well. We talk about this a lot. Words like look, see. I don't like the word "it's over there." Don't use that word around me because I don't know what over there is. But other words are definitely acceptable. So don't be afraid to use certain dialects. We use those words all the time. And also make sure that you include us in the conversation because sometimes we're left off to the side. Sometimes I was reading this yesterday, an article where a lady was talking about how when she comes to the party, sometimes a lady who was blind, and when she comes to the party, sometimes there's this, do you want a seat? And I find this to be true, but then sometimes when I go somewhere, they want to sit me down. I don't know, maybe I'm just in the way. But Chris might can attest to that. But every time I go somewhere, it's like, yeah, just sit over there. But that excludes you from the conversation. And then that makes you feel like your opinion is not valued at that time. So that's all I have to add.
Well, I will just add too that having an employee resource group that that is made up of other individuals with disabilities within the company can also be very helpful. It allows that opportunity to meet with others who might be going through similar things, similar challenges, and just trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. Things that maybe should be brought up to leaders of the organization and so forth and so on. So just having others within that group within the company that we can all reach out to and talk to and kind of be the advocates on behalf of those with disabilities. But I think also just having mentors as well within an organizational structure can be very helpful. The third thing that I'll say is there's a lot of times where there's this assumption that I'm not going to be able to do something. And, I had it happen multiple times where, the first thought was, you're not gonna be able to do that. And it's like, well, let's work through that. Let's talk about it and let's just see how my software interacts with whatever the program might be, or but it's just a matter of having a little bit of grace in terms of allowing to work through some of those processes to see what works well and what doesn't work well.
Thank you. Great discussion on that pillar. A lot of information back and forth. So yes, appreciate all those insights. So as we move forward to our fourth pillar, it is universal design and local partnerships. And so I want to propose this to Angela and Chris and anybody else who might want to share. So Angela and Chris, what low effort, high impact changes can organizations make today, and how can BOSMA help the broader business community? So Angela, you want to start?
Yeah, sorry. Pardon me. So I've seen over the last few years, it seems like a lot of advancement with universal design and just being accepted, because I can remember in my training days talking about that and going into rooms like this conference room and not really seeing, the spacing, the seating. And a lot of those things that we love at our office, like standing desks, have came from, needs of people with disabilities and everything. But like you said, it doesn't all have to be equipment expensive, but just being aware of lighting, being aware of your directional signs. Also getting back to people, making sure that your first person that someone encounters, whether it's on the phone or in person, when somebody walks into your building, has an understanding of how to direct people based off of what they know about them, understanding the, having good directional signs in your building and having those adjustments. That's not high cost necessarily. So those are things that you can do that can make a big impact, but be a low impact on your budget.
Right.
Couple things I would add is, especially from the idea of, or perspective of someone who's blind, visually impaired is, there's constantly this, push and pull between the idea of being, aesthetically pleasing in the office versus, what might be, practical. For someone who's blind, visually impaired, we're using canes a lot of times to be able to navigate around. And the reality for us is our cane is designed to find landmarks. And so just thinking about how we can create those landmarks that both, that work both from an aesthetic perspective, but also for someone who might be using a cane, to allow them to be able to more easily navigate, whether that's a rug of some sort or a piece of tape or whatever that may be that works. But just kind of thinking through those types of options. And then of course I have to stress accessibility of our websites and our applications that we're using, making sure that as a company we're working with vendors, third-party vendors who have accessibility in mind and are able to create their applications so that it is fully accessible and it's in compliance with our website content accessibility guidelines, and just really being mindful and thoughtful about that so that it's beneficial to both employees but also to customers who are visiting our websites and trying to access products and services as well.
I wanted to add to Chris's is that I think there's misunderstanding about, I know companies will say, well, we're ADA compliant, and they'll say we do accessibility. And I think that's great, but it's just really the surface level. We want to see more people be encouraged to go beyond, because it's one thing to say it's accessible or ADA compliant. It's a whole nother thing to actually be usable by the individual, and not assuming that just a disability category prefers everything the same way. Everybody is different, has different preferences, different heights, different all kinds of things, especially if they have a co-occurring disorder, then there could be even more, needs there. So I challenge, companies to think through that. It's not just about being ADA compliant or to say, oh yeah, we're accessible. I challenge you to say, okay, but are we usable by the end user, whether that's an employee, a customer, a client, whatever that may be. And then to answer the second part of your question, Marcia, about how BOSMA can help, from the blind low vision standpoint is we do have an employment services department on behalf of our programs team. And we welcome these kinds of inquiries where companies say, hey, we don't know if we're accessible for someone who's blind, or we don't know if our website will work with a screen reader. They told us it's accessible. There's that word again. But we don't know, and we want to do better. We want to make sure we are. We don't want to lose out on good candidates. And what if we had a blind customer come in? We want their experience to be good. So the employment services team here at BOSMA, we welcome those kinds of inquiries. They, please reach out if you have questions or you would want somebody to look at your website, or even have a member of our employment services team come out to your location and assess it and give you feedback. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, there was something you said that reminded me also as you're designing things to invite people with disabilities. Whether it's your employees as you're doing renovations, or your customers, invite them in and get their opinions and make sure that you have a variety of people there, because as Christy has said several times, not everybody uses things the same way or has the same needs.
You're getting me rolling on this topic. So one more thought that I wanted to throw out there is the idea of an organization having that person who is either an expert or knowledgeable and in charge of the accommodation, so that when an individual enters into the company, they know that that's the person that they go to if they have an issue or a request, or if they need something different, and they might also be able to help that. A lot of times the employee, they're trying to figure it out when they first enter the workforce. What exactly is going to work great and what's not. There is a little bit of trial and error that takes place to figure those things out in some situations. So just having that individual that can be the direct go-to and contact for the individual with a disability, but also for the staff, for the supervisors, for colleagues, that person that they can also go to and ask questions and be able to have that resource that they can rely upon to help out as well.
I'm going to add
Yep.
one. Might be all the same thing, yes. And making sure that you have a documented process in place for requesting accommodations. And don't get caught up. Have it now, even if you do not have anybody employed with a disability. Have it documented so when you do make that hire, it's in place.
Great points. Yes, absolutely. So again, great discussion. We've wrapped up our 4 pillars. Excuse me. So right now I'd like to open it up to our audience online to see if there are any questions. If you do, please put it in the comments section and we will see what we can do to present that to our panelists. But to get us started, we did have one question that has already been submitted. So I'm going to kind of go down the line and let each of you respond to this. What advice would you give to someone with a disability entering the workforce today? Kind of summing it all up. Ray?
The advice I would give to someone entering the workforce who has a disability is, first of all, get the training that you need. First of all, make sure that you have the training under your belt. Secondly, make sure you get that education under your belt and be able to utilize that computer, because right now, computers going to make sure that computers where it's at. So if you don't know how to use a computer, you're going to be left out. Make sure that you're using your assistive technology like JAWS. Make sure you're up to date on that because that's going to be key. And another thing is make sure that you have confidence within yourself because once you show up, that's going to determine your whole interaction on that interview. So make sure that you're showing up, looking your best, presenting yourself with your best foot forward when you show up to an interview. So those are things that I would say will make you more employable. Learn those cane skills, learn how to get around independently. Those are the things that employers are going to be looking for when you're out here looking for gainful employment.
All right, well, he took my first one that came to mind, was the confidence. Working with individuals who are going back, I would say this sometimes can be a little bit of a barrier for themselves. I want to see people be confident in your work history. You did have a very valid time where you were contributing and you were working and you have so many skills. You have a work history and it's good and it's going to help you get that next job. So be proud of that. Be willing to come up with it. And when you're in the interview, really make sure that you are touching points. So if they have certain job requirements, be able to have something solid from your past that you can address each one of those requirements. And if you use some sort of adaptive technology or whatnot, practice weaving that into that conversation as well. Because I think for employers, if they maybe see the cane, right, or you're wearing sunglasses, they might right away automatically think, well, I don't know how they're going to do this with a computer. But if I'm weaving it that how I use technology or what I use on my day-to-day and how I am good at that job task, maybe highlight prior performance on how you performed, that helps to softly start changing their perspective of what they're hearing, and they might now find themselves asking, well, I wonder what that is. How do they do that? And now we've moved from a stigma to curiosity, and I think ultimately that's what we hope for. So be confident and be able to speak clearly to the job requirements on that job listing with valid examples of how you've done that in the past.
The advice I would give is to know what resources are available for you. I've met many people outside of my career who disclose that they have disabilities and have no idea what vocational rehabilitation is. Well, I don't think I need that. Well, even if you're not going to go down that route right now, be aware because you might need to. And that's the advice I would give is be aware of what resources are available to help you.
The advice I would give, which I think is very important, is the idea of once you're in your role, do not suffer in silence. If you're having challenges or obstacles, don't assume that it's because you lack a skill or you're not able to do it because of, something that you haven't done before or something of that nature, but instead, have that open line of communication with your colleagues and your supervisor to be able to have those conversations to talk about what may be a challenge or an obstacle, and so that you all can figure out and work together to figure out how to overcome it and remove that particular impediment so that you can be successful in your job.
Thank you. I'm going to, I don't believe we have a,
Well, someone did mention vocational rehabilitation and that they can be an advocate and help. But I think a question I have is, what can a person do, or what if I'm going through vision loss, what can be my next step now? I just got the diagnosis. What happens? I think I want to go back to do something, but I don't know where the next steps are.
I'm loudly going to say call BOSMA. And in fact, that's how a lot of people sometimes get to that next step. They might have heard of it, seen a commercial, someone told them, oh, BOSMA helps people who are blind. They don't know really what it is. They just know we do something for people who are blind. We are proud to be that first phone call because we are going to listen and we understand. And back to the resources, we're going to have, our staff are trained in this. They have a variety of knowledge across our state on, different county resources, statewide resources. We will ensure that you get to that next first place. Oftentimes that is going to be vocational rehabilitation if they indicate they're maybe having difficulty on their job or wanting to keep their job, and just unsure how that's going to happen now with the vision loss. So, we want people to know anything with vision loss, blindness, call BOSMA, and we will we will help you from there.
All right. I know we're getting ready to wrap up. So before we do wrap up on our Disability Awareness Month and how we're going to bridge the gap from awareness to actionable inclusion, I want to challenge the audience with a one commitment challenge. So what I'm going to ask is that everybody who is online or in the room commit to one concrete action that you can take either within your department, your organization, to really support and advance disability inclusion, workplace inclusion. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining us here today. I want to thank our panelists for their excellent insights and information that they share. And I want you to also remember that BOSMA, as Christy said, is a resource throughout the state for Hoosiers with vision loss, and is a partner with any organization who is looking to advance accessibility access. So thank you again. Have a great afternoon. Be well.
Power. We're in the middle of all this, so that went out. I gotta get that back on before I can.
You just do power, or should do your PC. And it should come on. Yeah. You're still recording. You're still recording.